Hello, everyone, and hope everyone is having a good day so far, and hope everyone is staying safe. Lots of activity going on across the Ohio Valley. Even as of this morning, before the main event really kicks off this afternoon and into this evening here. Um, but yeah, we have a very busy day ahead of us. High end severe weather event here. Strong tornadoes possible. Some of them long track. Especially across southern Illinois, southern Indiana, in that sort of region there, I think, but also along southern Kentucky, central Kentucky. Um, Possibility for long track tornadoes, um, some violence as well. But this is mainly tornado risk is fairly high with this event, but this is going to be a tornado and um, wind driven sort of moderate risk here. And that includes sort of St. Louis, Cincinnati, Evansville, Louisville, Paducah, Bowling Green, Nashville, Kentucky, much of southeastern Missouri as well. And we have this enhanced risk from central Arkansas, so pretty much outside of Little Rock, Memphis, Tennessee, Jackson, Tennessee, Charleston, West Virginia, Columbus, Ohio, and Indianapolis, even Roanoke, Virginia. That enhance sort of extends to Western Virginia there. But yeah, a large area here, and not to mention this huge slight risk, including Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., all the way down to Dallas and Shreveport, Louisiana. So huge risk today. A really nice sort of large area of maybe more widespread severe weather here. Um, but yeah, again, tornado threat. Here's our tornado risk. Southern Illinois, Indiana, a lot of central Kentucky here, even parts of northern Tennessee into southeastern Missouri here. But our little bullseye here will be across sort of northern Kentucky and southern Illinois, Indiana here, Evansville, Louisville, I think especially. So being on the lookout in those areas, but we do have that 10%, including Cincinnati, Nashville, Jackson, Tennessee, and then this 5% um, extending to central Ohio and West Virginia and central Arkansas. Here's our wind threat here. We have this 30% hatch for much of that enhanced risk, all of it really. And then when we get into that moderate risk, we have that 45% hatched introduced, but significant damaging winds possible, um, up to 80 miles per hour in this pink and up to like 75 likely in the red here. See, isolated higher gusts in this pink, up to maybe even 90 miles per hour. Um, I think there's gonna be a lot of bow segments. Very like not very big bowing segments, but maybe like little clusters that form into bowing segments, and those little clusters usually do pack a punch. If if the environment is favorable for that, which it is today. It is today. So that's the damaging wind threat, and we have that 15% risk also where that slight risk is in place. Here is our hail risk here, and we have our significant risk really from Dallas, Waco, Texas, all the way up to Fort Wayne, Indiana, Columbus, Ohio. But we do have that 30% hatched where 3-inch hail is possible, including Bowling Green, Louisville, Evansville, Paducah, St. Louis, most of southeastern Missouri here. But we do have this 15% risk sort of extending out through the Ohio Valley here, including Columbus, Charleston, the coal fields, and then Nashville, Tennessee as well. So hail also going to be a risk today, but further west, the more significant it will likely be. So again, here's the main risk area, the enhanced and moderate risk in place. Just updated actually about 30 minutes ago as of making this video. So next, I want to sort of just kind of look at our radar here. This is our current radar, and we can see the current convection across you know, northwestern Tennessee all the way up through central Kentucky. We can see the clustering. We can see even a supercell or two down south, kind of becoming clustered there. A few supercells forming sort of in southern Kentucky here, and I think southern Kentucky throughout the rest of this morning needs to be on the lookout for large hail up to 2 inches and a quick tornado. Um, these storms are in favorable environments even right now to produce a quick spin up. So across southern Kentucky, be on the lookout the next several hours into the early afternoon, and then be on the lookout again later this evening into tonight. So multiple rounds possible today for many people. But we can see some nice convection here, and we can clearly see more of it sort of bubbling up and um, convecting. So um, and that sort of starts to fizzle out as it approaches southern Ohio and West Virginia. But a nice, impressive sort of a band of convection going on here, producing some strong winds, large hail, and a potential tornado. So let's look at our surface observations here, and again, we have that convection here, but we have around this convection, we really have low to mid 70s across the area, dew points in the mid 60s, upper 60s, some low 70s as well. Within the convection, though, we can see some like mid upper 60s. So let's kind of look at our models here, see what's going on. It's, and we can see our sort of mid 70s around our upper 60s across here, even lower 70s. But we see our mid 70s around H triple R doing fairly well with the temperature. And I do want to say that H triple R did very well with the convection and the RRFS. Did fairly well with the convection forming last night into Kentucky that we see right now. So I'm going to be using um, those two models for this video. But we see the H triple R doing well. Let's look at our dew points, mid 60s. Should be around most of the area, some 70s down south. So H H triple R again doing fairly well with our dew points here. Check the RRFS here. To the right time. And yeah, RRFS maybe slightly cooler with the convection here. Temperatures aren't that cool, so that could be playing a role in future convective development. With temperatures being actually lower than what they are. But however, we do see the mid 70s, so sort of around the convection still valid, but maybe a little bit cooler than what the surface observations sort of say here. So and we do have a mid 60s there, 64, but just a lot of just upper 60s around this convection. So yeah, yeah, there's a 60 value right there. Yeah, still, it's just too cool, but um, we'll still look at it. Let's look at actually. Let me look at that 9Z run here. Okay, the 9Z run is definitely much better here. Mid 70s around the convection. it sort of adjusted itself on this one here. Yeah, that's much better. Aligning uh, better with the surface observation. So I do want to next I do want to look at our sort of 500 millibar, 850 millibar winds here, and this is our href ensemble mean run here. And again, it takes the five sort of um, takes the five short range models and their last five runs here, and we can see those five right here, and then the five previous runs. So it has 10 total sort of uh, data um, plots to sort of use to make this ensemble mean. So this is our 500 millibar winds, and this is around 10 this morning. So right around now, and we can see our negatively tilted trough here. Our close low located across Minnesota here, negatively tilted trough. We have a nice sort of streak along multiple sort of streaks here, but we have our nice main streak here of around 70 to 80 knots of across the lower Ohio Valley. As we move on through the afternoon, this is around 3 p.m. Um, that sort of main batch across the lower Ohio Valley gets moved off east across the coal fields, just kind of supporting. It's going to be sort of riding with this convection here as it moves off to the east, kind of supporting this severe threat as it moves off east across southern West Virginia, western Virginia, and the coal fields as well. So just be on the lookout across this sort of region here. But we see, at this time we'll have our convection sort of start around the St. Louis region by about 2 to 3 o'clock. Um, and we can see our 70, 80 knot jet streak located there and in that same exact region. As we move on sort of in the evening, by sort of 7 o'clock, we can still see our main jet streak across Midwest, the lower Ohio Valley, where 70 to 80 knots is present. But even across Kentucky, parts of West Virginia, we have around 60 knots, 55 to 65 knots available, and Tennessee as well. So we even outside of this jet streak, we still have sufficient sort of mid-level winds to work with. But however, we have this maximum, I think, um, across sort of Illinois, western Indiana, central southeastern Missouri. And I think as that convection starts to bubble up, our greatest tornado threat is going to exist sort of along southern Indiana, southern Illinois, across sort of southeastern Missouri here, and then across sort of north central Kentucky. Um, I think especially across the southern Indiana, Illinois, sort of southeastern Missouri, maybe even including Paducah, Evansville. Um, that area there just has the best overlapping with 500 millibar winds and with our 850 millibar winds, which I will be showing here in a second. But as we move on throughout the night, as the threat moves eastward, we can see even some 80 to 90 knot winds start to show up in Indiana. But we can see, again, sufficient 50 to 60 knot winds across much of the mid-Atlantic, Ohio Valley, as that convection moves eastward. So let's look at our 850 millibar, our low-level jet here. And so again, we had our sufficient sort of 500 millibar winds, our sort of jet streak located central Missouri up through western Indiana, including sort of the Paducah, Evansville, just right outside of it. So this is around 11 a.m. here. We can see our sort of low level jet sort of that's causing this sort of convection across central Kentucky at this time. So that low level jet is sort of sparking up that event there, and that's going to move off east. But we have our main batch of low level jet return here across central Missouri, 11 o'clock today. And as we move on, about 4 o'clock, we can see our low level jet have a nice little streak here across southeastern Missouri into central Illinois, western Tennessee, and Kentucky. 40 to 50 knots possible, and that is pretty good. And as we move on across the evening, um, not to mention the overlapping. Remember, our 500 millibar winds were greatest over in the same region. The same region are 850 millibar winds. We have amazing overlapping in our sort of 500 millibar winds, 850 millibar winds across southern Illinois, southeastern Missouri, western Tennessee, Kentucky, and southern Indiana, western Indiana. So nice overlapping there. And as we move on throughout the evening, that just advances eastward, gains even more strength of 50 to sort of 60 knots across southern Indiana, western Kentucky. So low level jet really kicks in by evening, and tornado threat I think really strengthens, really increases by 4 p.m. today, um, 3 p.m. Central Time, across southern Illinois, southeastern Missouri. So just be on the lookout. This is definitely a significant event here. I do want to look at um, our models here. Look at our soundings. Look at our storm relative velocity. Look at our shear, our lapse rates. Just get a better idea of our environment. And then we'll look at our cape and sort of wrap things up sort of at that point. But so here's the HRRR here, and we're gonna go to about 2 p.m. here. I will take a sounding sort of outside, um, take a sounding in the coal fields. This is around 11 o'clock this morning, and yeah, we see nice cape here around 3,000 cape. Nice mixed layer cape is okay. It's not great. We do have some capping, some sort of inversion going on in our mixed layer, but nothing too serious here. Maybe I can go for an hour. It's a little bit better there. As that convection moves eastward, brings that sort of forcing allowed, and we can see our cape 3,000 mixed layer cape is much better, approaching 2,500. We have three cape 170, supporting those updrafts and potential near surface vorticity that can cause that quick spin up. We see our surface to 3 kilometer lapse rate in the mid sevens. So, um, but our other lapse rate's not great, but sufficient enough. But with the three cape supporting those updrafts, and then um, our shear value is not great, but they do increase towards our 3 kilometer range um, fairly well. But again, isolated sort of tornado, large hail threat across southern Kentucky this morning. But as we move on across the afternoon, I'm going to take a sounding here around the St. Louis region, southern Illinois. So we're like right in here. This is by 3 p.m. And yes, we can see um, lots of cape here, lots of surface cape, fat cape, starting in our 3 kilometer range up to our 9 kilometer range. Mixed layer cape is sufficient enough. Three cape over 100, check mark. Lapse rates are crazy high, supporting the steep lapse rates are going to support 2 to 3 inch hail easily. Our shear vectors are not our vectors, but our storm relative velocity with our shear value. Definitely more impressive than across southern Kentucky. But again, this is our photograph here is sort of elongated, and you do see that sort of right turn there, but are are they're not as as parallel from our if we look at the shear vectors here, but again supportive of sort of isolated scattered tornadoes possible, but especially large hail. And again, this is probably really before that low level jet begins to kick in. So if we move on a few hours here, let's take a sounding across sort of far western Kentucky here. Um, this will be there we go. And wow, 5500 Cape according to the HRRR Mixler Cape, 4500. That is insane. Our storm relative helicity is not great, but our 3 Cape 212, and our lapse rate's very steep. Um, I think this is supportive of not much turning in our winds, but this is supportive of 3-inch hail likely and potential tornadoes. Um, very pretty intense sounding there, honestly. And let's take a sort of sounding around 6 p.m. across central Indiana here. Um, again, our Cape values. Our Cape values are nice. We do have some sort of kind of that gap there between 84 degrees, 63 dew point. Um, a little dry at the surface, but not, not crazy to overcome. But 3 Cape sufficient enough lapse rates are pretty good. And yeah, that's going to be sufficient enough for 2-inch hail, some damaging winds. Um, our downdraft cape is near 1,000 as well. That's something to sort of be looking at today. Um, this is 7 p.m. Take a sort of sounding across north central Tennessee here, and lapse rates look good. Our downdraft cape is 900, 3 cape around 100, surface cape 3,000. Mixer cape around 2,800. That is good. We have nice turning in our winds. Yeah, our tornado threats at this point, 7 p.m. across probably central Kentucky, across north central Tennessee. Yeah. These the storm relative felicity values are a check mark for potential significant tornado development. Um, and we can kind of see that in the analogs here, and sort of elongated photograph again, but we do see that sort of right hand turn there to our 1 to 3 kilometer range. Definitely a sort of concerning sounding here across north central Tennessee at around 7 p.m. Um, so if any cell does take advantage of that environment, which it seems a few do across the border of Kentucky and Tennessee, according to this model run, today's triple R. But as we move on across the night, these sort of both segments will move eastward and sort of fizzle out across central West Virginia into southern PA, Western Virginia. Um, but yeah, definitely sort of concerning there. And look at sort of the surface base cape here and see what sort of instability we're looking at today. And yeah, by 2 p.m. we can see our pocket of 5,000 joules kilogram across the southeastern Missouri, western Tennessee, Kentucky, southern Illinois, northeastern Arkansas. Um, crazy instability being sort of evected in um, northward here, even southern Indiana getting into the 3,500 range. But yeah, our Cape values across our lower Ohio Valley are significant to say the least. Let's look at our mixed layer cape here. Um, expecting these to be, this is around 4 p.m. and again, 4,000 joules per kilogram. 2,000 joules per kilogram approaching central Kentucky, southern Indiana. So again, this is significant. These are significant values here. Um, over the lower Ohio Valley, let's look at our bulk shear. This sort of just, and by 4 p.m. here, we can see where our convection is at. We have nice values between 50 to 60 knots across the lower Ohio Valley and really much of the Ohio Valley. As we move on throughout the evening by like um, 10 p.m. here. Again, 60, 65, 70 knots possible. Southern Ohio through central Tennessee, even into West Virginia, into the mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee, Blue Ridge Mountains. So, um, yeah, our bulk shear here is good, sort of indicating at that sufficient shear we have overlapping or instability. Once again, um, look at our significant tornado parameter, just sort of highlights where the conditions sort of overlap and give us the best tornado sort of potential. Um, this is around 3 p.m. and we can see across southern Illinois, southeastern Missouri, western Kentucky, far northern Tennessee along the border of southern Kentucky seems to be the area of concern up through the afternoon today. So we go on through the evening, that sort of these sort of high values, anything really over two, anything over one is considered to be um, potentially significant, but anything really over two is where you get a good idea of um, where conditions are favorable. But we're having values up to 7 and 8 across southern Indiana, and like I said, across southern Illinois, southern Indiana, northern Kentucky. That's going to be the hot spot today, I believe. But I do think even north central Tennessee, if you can get a cell or two to develop across the Nashville, even Nashville region, it's gonna have it's gonna have that potential to have a long tracked sort of tornado, and we have seen that sort of 10% hatched. Um, this 10% hatched here drop south, including Jackson, Tennessee, and Nashville, Tennessee. I think for this reason, but again, we can see sort of just our general highlighted region to just look out. Just really much of all of the lower Ohio Valley, the Mid South, including Memphis, Nashville, Bowling Green, Kentucky. As we move on throughout the night, 20th really drops by 10, 11 o'clock across the upper Ohio Valley, mid Ohio Valley. But across the Tennessee Valley here, if we get any storm to sort of again, the form along the evening and throughout the night, it's going to have um, nice tornado conditions to sort of work with. So, um, definitely more overnight threat potential for central Tennessee. So, I mean, you have got to be on the lookout, especially for nocturnal events. Definitely more dangerous than daylight events, but that does sort of fizzle out by 3, 4 a.m. So, that's sort of what the HRR is saying. We can sort of compare that with the RFS here, but I won't go into too much detail as this run was a little bit cooler, so maybe not a great run here to sort of look at, but there's that convection that it had overnight, and it's done fairly well. And we can see throughout the morning more additional convection across southern Kentucky. But the main event really starts by 2 or 3 o'clock p.m. Central Time, and by 4 p.m. here we can see our sort of line of potential supercells across central Illinois down through northeastern Arkansas, working their way eastward. And as we move on throughout the day, 7 p.m., there's our main line across southern Indiana. But we can see some additional development here across southern central Kentucky. Huge hail makers possible, tornado risk possible. Um, and as we move on throughout the night, that risk goes into southern West Virginia, southern Ohio, much of all of Kentucky, western West Virginia, and yeah, and it sort of extends into central Tennessee for overnight, including Nashville, tornado risk possible, and by about 3 or 4 o'clock, it sort of fizzles out across the area. So, um, yeah, this is going to be an all day, sort of all night event here. Dangerous weather ahead. Um, Sort of look at the Cape here, compare the Cape values. This is by like 2 or 3 o'clock, and again, yeah, we can see that pocket of about 5,000 Cape, mid south, lower Ohio Valley. As we move on throughout the evening here, we can see that sort of 2,000 joules per kilogram kind of extend through central Ohio, central Kentucky, much of eastern Kentucky as well, and yeah, by that when that sun drops, most of that cape sort of fizzles out. Look at our mixed layer cape here. Again, sort of your general area, southern Indiana, Illinois, southward across western Tennessee. That's going to be your sort of hot spot today, I think, in southeastern Missouri, northeastern Arkansas. Sort of this general area here, um, going to be your hot spot today, and could be a significant day. Large hail to 3 inches, significant tornadoes, damaging winds up to 80 miles per hour, likely. Um, Even a possible 90-mile-per-hour gust is possible. Not out of the question. Um, so I do actually have a this is our downdraft cape here. And we're gonna go sort of further in the future here. This is probably around 3 p.m., 2 to 3 p.m. um today, and we can see across really much of Indiana down through southeastern Missouri, western Tennessee, western Kentucky. We can see our downdraft Cape values of around 1100 or higher, um, which is going to be sufficient enough for you know those damaging winds and the large hail. So again, significant day today. Here's the risk area once again. Stay weather aware. Um, Again, really from Little Rock up through Columbus, Ohio, Charleston, West Virginia. Just stay weather aware. Tornado threat, I think, is the greatest sort of across southern Indiana, southeastern Missouri, sort of northern Kentucky. But again, I think north central Tennessee and southern Kentucky as well has that chance, but not. I think it's not as high as sort of just far north, where that 500 millibar winds are a little bit stronger, more prevalent up north. So stay weather aware, stay safe, guys, and I will talk to you guys later.